was 3 in the morning when I first heard the knock. At first, it was soft. 3 slow taps on the front door, almost polite, almost testing. I froze in bed, straining to listen. The house was silent, but my heart started pounding. I pulled the covers tighter around me and waited. A minute later, the knocking came again, this time louder, harder. I forced myself out of bed and walked slowly toward the front door. Each step felt heavier than the last. I pressed my eye to the peephole and saw nothing. The porch was empty. I stood there for a long moment, hand hovering over the lock. Was it a prank? A drunk neighbor at the wrong house? Finally, I backed away, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But as I turned, the sound came again, only this time from the back door. 3 sharp knocks rattled the glass. My body went cold. That door didn't have a peephole. I held my breath, waiting for it to come again, but the house fell silent. I gripped the counter in the kitchen, every muscle tense, listening. Then came the sound at the side window, then the garage door, then the sliding glass doors that led to the patio. One by one, knocks moved around my house in a circle. Every possible way in was being tested. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The operator's voice was calm, steady, almost casual. She told me officers were on the way, but it would take 15 minutes. 15 minutes felt like a lifetime. I armed myself with the biggest kitchen knife I owned and sat down in the hallway, my back against the wall, facing the front door. Every few seconds, another knock echoed somewhere else in the house, then silence. I opened my Ring app on my phone. The front camera showed the porch. At first, it was empty. Then he stepped into view. A man, standing perfectly still, head tilted up, staring directly into the camera. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there. His face was expressionless, but the longer I looked, the more wrong it felt, like he was studying me through the lens. I waited like that, staring at the feed until red and blue lights finally flashed across the windows. The officers searched the yard, the street, even the woods at the edge of the property. They found nothing. They told me it was probably a prank and left me with a warning to keep the doors locked. But I knew it wasn't a prank. The next morning, I stepped outside. The ground was wet from last night's rain, and the mud told the real story. Footprints circled my house. They went from the front door to the